what I've been feeling for the majority of people, whether it is in this community or whether it is in the general or within the collective as a whole, what I've been feeling is that what is lying on the other side of the doorway right now for many of you are opportunities, events, connections with beloveds, soulmates, twin flames, soul tribes, soul families that are destined to be in your world. Okay? But we are being reminded very, very strongly today, beloved. Very, very strongly. We are being reminded now that the soulmates, the beloveds, the soul tribes, the wonderful opportunities and events that we have longed for, that we have hoped for, that we have felt within our core, that would be in resonance with our soul. Those connections, those opportunities cannot and will not fully recognize you if you are not in your fullness. Now let that sit a little moment, for a moment within your conscious awareness. The beings, the people, the places, the opportunities, the events, the soul families, the soul tribes, the soulmates, the beloveds, the twin flames that you have been working so hard towards being in resonance with are now wanting to step into your world in this new phase, this new season, this new cycle of your life, whatever it might be for you. But the divine reminds you now that these opportunities, these people cannot and will not recognize you if you are not in your fullness. And so I pose the question, where or how are you still hiding? Where or how are you still trying to fit yourself into a box of limitations, of what we think is required or is normal? Where or how are you still dimming your own light? Where or how are you still diminishing your own power? Where or how are you still limiting your heart's truth and your heart's creative expression? And now I know from personal experience working with many of these beautiful masters in this community, masters that are absolutely resilient, masters that are so committed, masters that have walked this journey for quite a long time and find themselves in this space of deeper and greater embodiment. I know from personal experience just how much you've cultivated up until this point. And I'm not speaking to the idea that you have been consciously dimming your light or you have been consciously hiding. I'm speaking to the part of you, no matter how small, how tiny it might be or feel or seem, the part of you that has recently come into your conscious awareness. Recently, I would say within the last 2 to 3 weeks, there's a part of you that has been coming up, clamoring for your attention, clamoring for your love, clamoring for your acknowledgement. And it almost feels like many of you have been walking through moments of sadness, deep disappointment, and grief. And this, I want to mention, is absolutely normal in terms of what you're moving into, because there is a closing of a cycle, of a chapter, of a phase of your life that has been long walked and is now coming to an end. But there is still this grief emerging, the sadness and this disappointment emerging. But it's coming up for a very specific reason. It's coming up for you to acknowledge the part of you that you have been separated from. It is what I would call the loss of self. And so they're bringing me back to even before this lifetime, to when your journey began. Being separated in perspective, in your perception, from source, from God. We know that that can never truly be possible in truth, objectively. But when we have that separation experience or perspective or perception that we are being separated from our God, from our source, there's a part of us that almost feels less than, or less significant, or undervalued, or unworthy, or not good enough. And this is a wounding that is coming up now for many of us, irrespective of how long and how much you have dealt with the wound of unworthiness, or loss of self, or not being in your fullness, in your wholeness. Like I mentioned, it doesn't matter how small or how big it is for you. But this has been coming up recently because it is coming up with that last emotion of grief, that last outburst, that last outcry, that last opportunity for you to resolve that wound and come back into your wholeness, into your truth, and into your fullness. And this is such a beautiful opportunity. Why? Because as much as it feels uncomfortable going through these emotions of sadness or grief or disappointment, and you might not even know where it's coming from. It might be triggered by a death in the family. It might be triggered by death of an animal. It might be triggered by a partner or the lack of a partner. It might be triggered by loneliness. It might be triggered by anything, but it's being triggered for a very specific reason. And it is because this wound is being unearthed within you now. The last remnants, the last layers that have not been processed within your being is now being purged, being brought to the light of your awareness and consciousness so that it can close, complete, and you can embrace your fullness. But it's not just about the grieving process. It's not just about being present with yourself as you are moving through these emotions or these waves of emotions. And I want to mention just that it can be bittersweet when you have this high consciousness, so this high state of being, of awareness, of truth, but you are still having to process the human emotions. There's this beautiful bittersweet experience, this experience of duality where we can recognize our humanity as well as recognize our divinity. And so being fully human in that moment as you're experiencing those emotions, but also being fully divine by bringing your awareness back to the truth of what is really transpiring with you for you in those moments of sadness, disappointment, loneliness, grief, resistance. And like I've mentioned, it's not just about being present with those emotions now. What is also being called forth from you is the awareness and the conscious intention on your part to go forward, move forward, take the necessary steps forward, whatever that might be for you in terms of work, purpose, connections, relationships, freedom, whatever it is that calls to your heart's desire, your passion, your joy. Go forward in that and show up fully with pure intention, with conscious intention to show up fully just as you are, because you, beloved, are not meant to fit in. And I say that with an open heart, with the purest of truth and intentions to you today. You are not meant to fit in. You are meant to shine your light in its brightest form. And a lot of you have possibly walked this path and said, but I've done so much work. Why hasn't this person come into my world yet? Why haven't I received the opportunities that I've worked so hard for? Why haven't I seen the results of all the work that I've done in terms of connections and opportunities and events and possibilities and potentialities coming into my reality? And the divine says, where are you still not showing up in your fullness, in your expression, in your heart's truth, in the way that you present yourself, in the way that you show up? Are you still trying to fit yourself in order to be complacent, compliant, or to not make others feel less than? The divine says today, very bluntly, how others receive you and what their perspectives are is not your business, nor is it your problem. Your job, beloved, is to shine that beautiful light of yours in the way that it wants to be shown. This means constantly, day in and day out, emptying your vessel, being spacious enough in every moment. I mean, spacious in terms of what are we still holding on to? What are the narratives we are still holding on to? What are the stories we are still holding on to? What are the beliefs that we are still telling ourselves day in and day out that keeps us in states of stuckness, resistance, sadness, disappointment? How are we filling up our vessel with unnecessary energies that no longer serves? Might have served you up until this point, but it no longer serves you going forward. Why? Because the divine is calling you to step into this new journey, this new beginning, this new phase, this new season, where connections, soulmates, soul tribes, soul families, twin flames, opportunities that resonate so deeply with who you truly are wants to receive you. These are opportunities, these are connections, collaborations, partnerships, people, places, events, soul bonds that are able to and have the capacity to truly receive you and see you and embrace you as you truly are. And you would never know who they are, right? If you do not show up in your fullness and see who is truly ready to receive you. Well, this message was very transparent today, very urgent and persistent in the way that it is brought forward. But I trust that it will resonate with you in the way that it needs to, and that it will plant a seed in your conscious awareness the way that it needs to, under the direction and guidance of your divine higher self. And in saying that now, I want us to just take a little journey, because I'm seeing within my mind's eye the parts of yourself, and I can feel it coming up now. The parts of yourself that are still grieving the perception of losing oneself, of not being home within oneself, the perception that you are separate from God's source. And yes, we remind you today that you never were, and you never are, and you never will be. There is no separation there. But the part of you that still perceives it that way now steps forward, and I invite you now, beloved, to close your eyes with me in this moment. Opening up the doors of the heart, invoking the presence of your higher self now to step into the sacred circle, as well as the seraphim, the mighty Elohim, archangels Michael, Ariel, Raphael, Zadkiel, Metatron, Gabriel, ascended master teachers Yeshua, Mary Magdalene, Kuan Yin, invoking our circle of light to surround us in this moment, beloved. As we call the parts or part of ourselves in, that was so deeply buried within our being, that has forgotten our eternal connection to the divine source, to divine creation. The part of ourselves that still feels it is necessary to compare. The part of ourselves that still feels it is not safe for us to be seen, heard, felt, known in our greatest light. The part of ourselves that feels it has not been seen and heard and validated and embraced and understood. So for some of you now, there might be a triggering of emotion within your being now, as I'm feeling the emotion of many of your fractured parts stepping forward. As they bring forward, they step forward with a purging of many different types of emotions stemming from grief, feeling misunderstood, sadness, loneliness. And I ask you now, beloved, to soften your being. Soften your being. Soften your body. Allow any resistance to just fall off and fall away now in this moment. Trusting that you are being held in pure divine love. And opening up what it looks like is the space of the womb area now, whether it's male or female, doesn't matter. Opening up the sacral chakra now, and there's a clearing and cleansing out of that space. So a lot of the spaces of relationship with self, relationship with others, in the relationship with our inner child, is being cleared and cleansed now out of the sacral chakra. Breathing now into the heart. And as you breathe into the heart space, you feel and you visualize that beautiful light and air and breath moving down through the solar plexus and into the sacral chakra, illuminating your centers, instantly alchemizing any dense energies, frequencies, thought forms, narratives, beliefs, ideas, and assumptions now from your field. Beautiful. This part of you steps forward now and stands in front of you now, and I would like for you to repeat the following after me in your mind or out loud as you address this part of your being now. And I want you to notice that in this moment, as you are addressing this part of you that stands in front of you now, you are addressing this part of you from the perspective and the embodiment of your higher self. So you are your higher self now in its fullness, with all knowing, all truth of who and what it is that you are and who they are. And you can change these words as it feels aligned for you and your aspect in front of you now. I am so sorry that you have not been fully heard, that you have not been seen in all of your power, that you have not been accepted and allowed to express all of your truth. I'm sorry that you never had a safe space to provide you the love, the nourishment, and the nurturing you deserve. And most importantly, I'm sorry that I haven't fully been there for you, but I'm here now. Allow me to hold you. Allow me to show you who you are, what you are. Allow me to give you the platform to show up in your fullness. Allow me to show you your unbelievable worth and value. Allow me to show you just how loved you truly are. How loved you always have been, and how loved you will always be. Will you trust me? Will you take my hand? Will you allow me to embrace you in this moment? Are you willing to let go of the old? Are you willing to hand over your grief? And I hold up a mirror now before you, showing you what I see when I look at you, showing you what the divine sees when it looks at you, showing you who you truly are in all of your fullness, in all of your power, in all of your strength, in all of your knowing. And as you receive yourself now in this moment by looking at your true essence, everything changes. It is safe for you now to come home. It is safe for you now to let go of the belief and the limitations and the ideas that you were separate from God, from Source, from your divine self, that you were less than. And in so doing, you were looking outside of yourself for the validation, the approval, the connection, in order for you to feel that fullness once more. But today, we ask you, and we give you this moment, we offer this moment to you for you to feel your fullness, for you to truly experience your fullness, your wholeness, your completeness. For there is much to come for you, beloved. There is much, much more to come for you. Taking a moment now, beloved, to embrace this part of you. As you hold them, embrace them, accept them fully, wholly, and completely into your being now. Any leftover grief, sadness, disappointment, feelings of separation, consciousness, instantly alchemizes and transforms into love, into truth, into knowing. Calling back your power now for deeper integration, deeper and greater embodiment of your true self. as a master embodied in form. Beautiful. Coming back to the now moment now, when you feel ready, you can open up your eyes.